everybody, welcome back to another Sippin' on Sunshine video. We are on video number 8. Today we're going to work on pinwheels 1, 2, and 3, the grass, and the pennant. Both the pinwheels and the grass blocks are going to be built a little bit different. We're actually going to piece the block first and then add the quilting. Let's talk about what we need to get ready for today. I already have all my fabrics and batting ready to go, and I put little sticky notes on here to remind me that I have to piece and then quilt the pennant and the grass. For the pinwheel blocks, you're going to need 3 5.5-inch squares of batting. For the grass, they tell us to cut the batting 3 by 9. I cut it 3.5 by 9.5. I like it a little bit bigger. It makes it easier for me to trim. And then our pennant banner is going to use wash away topping and some tulle and mylar. I'm going to start with the pinwheel block. We have to make 3 of these. This is a 5 by 7 file and it has a part A and a part B. When I put this on my machine, I can fit 2 into a hoop. I can't fit 3, so what I'm going to do is stitch 1 pinwheel out in the 5 by 7 hoop, and then I'll stitch the other 2 off camera. That way you can see how this pinwheel is made. I'll go ahead and put some light mesh cutaway in a 5 by 7 hoop, and we'll go stitch out a pinwheel. I'm on a Baby Like Meridian. I have my files on USB. Let's go ahead and load 1 pinwheel file, and we'll stitch that out together, and you can see how you put together the pinwheel. The first thing we're going to do is stitch out the template directly onto our stabilizer. We're doing the piecing of the pinwheel first and the background quilting later. You want to go ahead and put the colored linen on your machine. I have my light mesh cutaway in a 5 by 7 hoop. We're ready to go. First thing you want to do is stitch out the piecing template directly onto your stabilizer. The template is all stitched out. I like to have this next to me. This is page 66. This picture right here is going to help me keep my fabrics straight. We're going to start with piece 1. So it's the top half, lower left triangle, and you're going to place your piece 1 fabric right side up. You want to be sure you completely cover that triangle. These fabric cuts are more than big enough. Go ahead and place that, and then we're going to stitch out the trimming and placement line. You want to trim away the fabric that's on this side of the trimming and placement line. I've got that trimmed away, and I also trimmed away a little bit of the fabric here because it was going down into piece B. You don't want anything overlapping. We're going to grab fabric number 2. Fabric number 2 goes right side down. You're going to center it along the trimming and placement line we just stitched out, and then we're going to stitch the seam. Once the seam has stitched, we need to flip this over and press it. You can take it to your iron if you like. I'm going to use this little Clover Seam Roller. Get my seam nice and flat, and then we're going to stitch out the next trimming and placement line. Go ahead and trim away the fabric on this side of the trimming and placement line. Once you've got that trimmed, you want to take your piece 3 fabric, center it along the trimming and placement line, right side down, and we'll stitch the seam. You're going to do the same thing, flip it, press it, and then stitch out the next trimming and placement line. We need to trim away this piece of fabric and this little bit right here. We're going to grab our piece 4 fabric, make sure it's right side down, center it along that trimming and placement line, and stitch the seam. All stitched. You want to flip and press, and the next thing that's going to stitch out is called the part A trimming guide. It's going to stitch a rectangle all the way around the pieces we just placed. Get this little bit extra out of the way, and once that's done, we have to stitch out part B. Part A is done. Part B is done exactly the same. You start with fabric 5, which is this fabric. You can see you're building your pinwheel and the fabric colors are alternating. I'm going to go ahead and do this part off camera because it is exactly the same as what we just did. We're going to talk next about putting these together and doing the quilting. Here's the pinwheel we just finished. You're going to want to take it out of your hoop. I've made 3 of these, so we're going to step through this pretty quickly. Once you have it out of your hoop, you'll see you've got your 2 pieces. The only thing you want to trim is right here, the center lines of that trimming guide. Grab a ruler and trim that center line, because what you're going to do is sew your pinwheel together. So you've got one half there and then one half here. And if you want, you can trim a little bit of this outside stabilizer off, but you want to leave extra because we're going to do the background quilting and we need something to tape down to hold it while we do our in the hoop background quilting. So don't cut right on those trimming lines, but you can get rid of some of this excess. You can see I'm not being neat about it. I'm just sort of cutting it and getting it out of the way. Now you have your two halves. You're going to put them right sides together. And when I did this, what I looked at were the stitching lines and kind of where the points are. It's really easy to line up like this and then slide it. Everything is lined up. You'll take it to your machine, stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I did that on the third one already. There's my pinwheel. And then I went ahead and pressed it open on the back. And you can see I still have extra all the way around. We need to do our background quilting. So you want to go ahead and make all 3 of your pinwheels, but don't trim the extra completely away from the outside. I've got all 3 of my pinwheels ready to go. They're sewn together with extra around the outside. We're going to quilt one together, so I've loaded my light mesh cutaway in a 5x7 hoop. I've got my batting ready. Let's head over to the machine. We need to bring up our quilting file for the pinwheels, and this is going to be in the color linen. We're looking for KDQ 526 Weather 6, that one, and it says 4x4 horizontal. It's pinwheel, it's a square. If you pick horizontal, if you pick vertical, it's going to work out either way. You would just turn it. 4x4. Go ahead and hit set and embroidery. We're going to get started. Make sure you have linen on your machine. We're going to start with our batting placement line. Take your batting, cover the placement line, stitch the batting tack down, then trim everything outside of the tack down line. Once your batting's trimmed, stitch out the fabric placement line. Our pinwheel is our fabric. We want to center this. I've got some nice notches on my hoop. You can also fold it, line up lines. You can eyeball it. If it's not perfectly centered, it's going to be just fine. I'm going to use these little notches on the side. I can see that that's lined up there. And let's look for the other one. That's lined up there. And just kind of look at the top. That looks good. That looks good. Looks pretty centered to me. The next thing we're going to do is stitch the tack down and then stitch the quilting. That's all quilted. What's really nice about this quilting design is nothing ran over the center. This is where all the seams are, and even this seam in the center, when you press it open, is pretty bulky. This quilting went above and below the seam. I've got all 3 of these done. We need to trim them all to 4.5 inches square. You can line up your orange pop ruler using the outside lines, and also on your orange pop ruler there are some arrows. They're right in the middle. So there's one here, 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 and here. So if you didn't get your threads exactly lined up, which I didn't, you can use these arrows and line them up with your seam lines. Now I know that everything is lined up and my block is centered. So I can go ahead and trim this one, and then I'll do the same for the other 2. Let's go ahead and load the grass blocks. We need to make 3 of these, and the block by block quilting is built into these blocks. So it's all under your embroidery files. 6x10 grass. I'm going to hit set. I'm going to move this all the way over to the left, and then I'm going to add a couple more. We need 3, and they'll all fit in my largest hoop, which is a 9.5 by 14. There's 3. Spread them out. We're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and save that to my machine. Since I used the border duplicate to put all 3 in one hoop, it's going to do everything at the same time. So we're going to stitch out a batting placement line. You'll see my machine stitch out 3. We want to cover that with our batting. Now I cut my batting a little bit wider. It makes it easier for me to work with and easier to trim. I don't like when the stitch lines for the tack down are right near the edge of the batting. I have a hard time trimming it. So mine probably look a little bit fatter. I cut them 3.5 wide instead of 3 inches wide. It's going to be nice and easy for me to work with. Once you've got that all taped into place, you can stitch the batting tack down line. Once your batting is tacked down, you can go ahead and trim everything that's outside of the tack down line, and then we're going to stitch out the piecing template. It's going to divide our batting into 4 sections. My piecing templates are all stitched out. We want to start with our piece 1 fabric. This is going to be section 1. They're cut in rectangles, and in the instructions it shows them going this way, but I've got mine kind of close together. I can lay them the other way. You can see it easily covers, here's your top line, the top line, both lines on the side, and the bottom line. So I'm laying them this way, makes it easier to fit everything into the hoop, and then I'm going to be ready to stitch out the trimming and placement line. You can add a piece of tape if you want, but having that batting there kind of keeps the fabric held into place. Just like with the pinwheels, we're going to trim away the extra. So trim away this part that's outside of that trimming and placement line. I'm going to do that for all 3. Next is our piece 2. This has to go right side down. Centered along that trimming and placement line. Plenty of space lining them up in this direction. You can put them in this direction as well. Either way is going to work. So I'm going to line up all 3 of these, and then we're going to stitch the seam, flip and press, exactly like we just did with the pinwheels. The seams are stitched, flip and press, and then we're going to stitch out the next trimming and placement line, which is going to go up there. Go ahead and trim away the extra, and then you're going to place the solid fabric down, and we'll stitch the seam. We've got our piece number 3, same thing. Place it right side down, although for this fabric it really doesn't matter. Center it along that trimming and placement line. Stitch the seam. After you stitch the seam, flip it up, press, stitch the next trimming and placement line, trim, and place the last piece. I'll go ahead and run that together. It's exactly like what we did with the pinwheels. Here we go. I've got everything pressed. I put a piece of tape up here at the top just to hold that into place. We're going to stitch that outside trimming guide and then the grass quilting. These are all stitched out. Let's go ahead and take these over to the table and get them trimmed. I've got this out of the hoop. I've got all 3. They need to trim to 2.5 by 8.5. This is when I like having a lot of rulers. I have a ruler that's 8.5 and a ruler that's 2.5. This one is 8.5 by 12.5. Since all 3 are all lined up, I'm going to line this up and do the 8.5 on all 3 at the same time. So line that up, make sure that's straight. I can take a line on the ruler, line it up with one of the stitching lines there. Looks like it needs to go down just a hair, and that's good. And then I can trim my 8.5. And then I can go back and trim the 2.5 one at a time. Now I can trim the 2.5. 2.5 inch wide rulers are really nice to have. I use this 2.5 by 12.5 quite a bit. If you ever see one on sale, I'd say grab one. Spin that around, get the other side, and then I'll do the other 2. These are all trimmed. I'm going to set these aside. We're going to start on our pennant banner. The pennant banner can fit into a 4x4 hoop. My smallest hoop size is 5x7. You want wash away stabilizer for this. So cut a piece of wash away stabilizer. Go ahead and get that loaded into your hoop, and we'll head over to the machine. Let's go ahead and bring up our file for our pennant banner. This is different than the pennant block, which we already did at the beginning. So we're looking for the little pennant banner right here, 4x4. It's one file. Go ahead and hit set and embroidery. We're ready to start. We're going to start with the color Grotto Blue, and they tell you to match the bobbin thread to the top thread. I don't do that. I've explained it before, but just in case this is your first time watching, my machine likes 90 weight thread in the bobbin. The bobbin case that I have is not adjustable. They make a separate bobbin case, which would allow me to use different threads, but right now I've been fine using the white thread for all of these projects. Remember, this is going to go on the quilt. You're only going to see the front side. But if you'd like to match your bobbin thread, go ahead and do that. The first thing we're going to stitch out is the banner placement line, and it's going to go right on to the wash away stabilizer. This is very similar to the dragonfly wings. You're going to have a layer of tulle, and it tells you to put down the tulle and to tape it, and then to put down the mylar and to tape it, and then to put down the next layer of tulle and to tape it. I put down all three at once. Make sure you've got a big enough piece of tape, top and bottom. Once that's taped into place, we're going to stitch the banner tack down. I stopped the machine after the banner tack down. It goes right into the Pennant 1 fill. After that's stitched out, you can go ahead and take off all of the tape. We're going to switch to the color Buttercup. If you're matching your bobbin, you're going to switch your bobbin too. Make sure you've got Buttercup top and bottom. I'm just switching my top thread. We're going to stitch out the Pennant 2 fill. Next, we'll switch to Monarch. If you're matching your bobbin threads, switch out the bobbin thread. We're going to stitch out the Pennant 3 fill. A quick note, after you stitch that out, make sure you trim away the tulle and the mylar. I didn't realize I was supposed to do that. I do it later. It doesn't really matter, but it'll look a little bit better if you trim it now like it says to in the instructions. Switch to Buttercup and switch your bobbin if you need to. We're going to stitch out the Pennant 2 satin outline, and then after that you'll switch to Grotto Blue, switch your bobbin again if you need to, and stitch out the Pennant 1 satin outline. I'll go ahead and run those two steps together. I'm not going to run those two steps together. I forgot to trim this before I started doing the satin outline. I've got that all trimmed. That trimmed really easily. It practically pulled out from under the satin outline. If you're going to make a mistake, that's the mistake to make. I'm going to switch to the Grotto Blue and stitch out the satin outline. We're going to switch to the color Mocha. Switch your bobbin thread if you need to. Go ahead and match it. And we're going to stitch out the Pennant string fill. That's all stitched out. The instructions tell us to trim about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching. Then you can put this in some cool water, let it sit there for about 15 to 20 seconds, and then you can feel it. If it feels sticky, there's still some of the stabilizer left. Go ahead and get it nice and rinsed so it doesn't feel sticky. And then I like to press it between 2 layers of paper towel and let it lay flat and to dry. I'm going to go ahead and go do that. Here's all the blocks we did today. We've got our 3 pinwheel blocks, the 3 grass blocks, and our Pennant banner. Let's have a look at what we're going to do next week. Next week is the final week. We're going to work on the filler blocks, the borders. We're going to assemble our quilt and add our embellishments. Thank you so much for joining me today. One more week and we'll have our quilt done and ready to display. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments or questions, leave them for me below the video. All the products that we're using are linked below the video. I'll be back next week, video number 9, and we'll finish off our quilt. See you next time.